Hey guys, a few videos ago, I did a video on psychological terms that people use incorrectly, and uh, that was just a few of them, but those were one of the main culprits that I think a lot of people get confused about. Okay, um, I'll probably do some more as well because there are other um, terms that are misunderstood in the psychological community. Not And I was just harping on the ones used in like clinical and medical settings because even some of the experts use those incorrectly. Okay. But today I want to talk about philosophical terms that people use incorrectly. The reason being is that it pisses me off. It's a personal pet peeve of mine. Some of these things, some of these philosophical concepts and expressions people use incorrectly. Whereas the psychological terms doesn't really bother me because a lot of them are interchangeable in some ways and easy to be misunderstood, whereas with philosophy with philosophical terms that are often used wrongly, it's usually used by people making bad arguments and a bunch of pseudo intellectuals. So that's why I have much less patience for people who use them. So let's just jump right into the first one: logical. So many people abuse this term logical when what they're saying is really referring to someone being reasonable or rational. Even in one of my favorite TV shows of all time, Star Trek, Mr. Spock will always say, that's only logical. And he meant rational, okay? Because that's logical refers to logic, not just a matter of someone, you know, behaving rationally or whatever, which is a more of a psychological phenomenon or epistemic, I should say, than referring to logic. So logical refers to logic, and you can either talk about logic, capital L, which is the formal science of systems of reasoning, or lowercase l logic, which is referring to a form of reasoning within some certain domain. So you would say the logic behind psychology and its methods, or any other sort of domain. Okay, so that's what logical refers to. It doesn't refer to someone behaving rationally or saying something reasonable. Okay, jumping on that, valid. That's used so incorrectly. It's so annoying. Again, it's usually used by people trying to make some little pseudo intellectual argument. Valid does not refer to a claim that someone makes, nor does it mean that something is true. That's not what valid means. Valid Validity refers to two things in philosophy. You're either talking about, again, logic, deductive validity, which is a redundant expression, but is sometimes important to establish it from other things. So validity or deductive validity refers to the form of an argument or an inference. That is that the premises of an argument or inference guarantee its conclusion. And when those premises are true and yield a true conclusion, it's also a sound argument. So you can say it's a valid sound argument. Now, there's two types of deductive validity: syntactic validity, validity, and semantic validity. So as far as the form of the argument, an argument can just be valid just by the form of the argument itself. So here's a simple one: if P then Q, P therefore Q. That is a valid argument. It doesn't matter what the content of P or Q is always going to be a valid argument. And that's an important part missed in logic and by beginners in logic, is that they think that the premises have to be true. No, you can have false premises leading to a false conclusion. That's still a valid argument. You can have Um, false premises lead into a true argument. Okay. But you cannot have true premises that lead to a false conclusion. The truth of the premises guarantees the truth of the conclusion in a valid argument. But what people miss is that you can have valid arguments with false premises and false conclusions. So that takes you into semantic validity, where you're actually talking about the content of the premises itself, um, guaranteeing the validity of the argument, okay, or inference. That is validity. And then the other type of validity, instead of deductive validity, is scientific validity, which comes in a bunch of different variants like construct validity, criterion validity, face validity, test, retest validity, and so on. But they all basically refer to the fact that a research design should measure whatever is designed to measure. That is scientific validity. So unless you are using the term validity to refer to either of those two things, either deductive validity or scientific validity, you're using the term incorrectly. Stop saying it. Just say that you think this sounds true, or okay, or it sounds reasonable, or whatever. But don't say that this claim is valid, or his feelings are valid, or whatever. It just sounds stupid. Stop saying it, please. Okay. Here's another one. Tautology. That is used incorrectly, even by some people in philosophy itself. So the great philosopher Ludwig Wittgenstein, who's in my top 3 philosophers, I already mentioned Socrates in another video, because on top of him being the father of Western thought, assuming that Socrates was real, which I think we can say he was real since there's a lot of different accounts of him. But in any case, because he was a badass and not just Western thought, but he held it down militarily as well. He's one of my boys, okay? But Wittgenstein, as one of the founders of analytic philosophy, did a lot for formal logic, and he invented the truth tables. There was another person who invented truth tables as well, but a little bit differently than Wittgenstein and independently of him. But I think Wittgenstein was the first one who invented the logical truth tables, which are still used in computer science and stuff like that today. So in a logical truth table, when you demonstrate a logical truth, that is on a truth table, it's called a tautology. That's what a tautology is, but it's so oftenly abused to refer to a truism or an empty truth. That is not what a tautology is. And logical truths aren't necessarily empty truths, although some people might think so. But in any case, a tautology is just a logical truth that you can demonstrate on a truth table. That's what a tautology is. Please stop abusing that, okay? Are there any other philosophical terms that I want to really dig into right now? Maybe later, but I think that's enough. Let's just recap, okay? Logical refers to either the formal science that studies systems of reasoning, or refers to the form of reasoning within some domain, okay? Validity refers to either deductive validity, which is the form of the argument itself, or an inference, or it refers to scientific validity, which is that a scientific study is supposed to measure whatever it was designed to measure. Okay, and lastly, tautologies refers to a logical truth that can be demonstrated on a truth table. It does not mean an empty truism. All right, I think that's enough for right now. Let's do some more later. Okay, just your contrarian here, but I am right.